guess we can go ahead and roll into our review for Narcosis. Narcosis is a survival horror game set in the sunless depths of the Pacific Ocean. You play a industrial diver who had an accident with there was an accident on the seafloor, and now you're surviving in a coffin, which is like your suit, I guess, is the best way to describe it. And it's all about like surviving this crazy experience. It's released March 28th, $20 on Steam, developed by Honor Code and published by Honor Code. Monica, what were your expectations going into Narcosis?
So I feel like it's a exploratory survival horror. Survival, I use the term loosely there. But my expectation was, oh my goodness, I am blanking right now on the game that came out within the past year, or maybe it was a little bit longer than that. Also an underwater exploration,
Subnautica?
slight horror. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, was that it?
I know it's underwater.
No.
It's called Subnautica.
Is it? Okay.
That's the only one I know about.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe that was it. But I was expecting it to be just based off of the trailer. I was expecting it to be like pretty extreme horror. Mainly because there's this one scene where you are walking through this row of suits that seem to be empty, and they show that in the trailer, and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so creepy. It was Soma. Not Subnautica. Subnautica wasn't horror. I don't know what Subnautica was. No, Subnautica wasn't horror at all. It's not like Greenpeace. Like,
I mean, I could have brought up like Little Mermaid there. I would have made the same point.
The Little Mermaid, yes! Yeah. The Little Mermaid, that exploratory horror game that everyone loves so much. It was Soma. That's what it was called.
I do remember Soma.
So I was expecting Soma a little bit here, but I was also expecting something maybe a little bit more akin to Outlast, but underwater. And I also was expecting to shit myself. So those were my like 3 expectations. How about you?
Yeah, I was prepared to be like freaked out, like you said, like seeing the row of suits down there. It just seems like a mind fuck. Like, I kind of have 2 fears in life, right? And not like the first one isn't a fear. Like I don't like being like closed in. You know what I mean? Like kind of claustrophobic, but I'm not afraid of it. But I'm definitely uncomfortable in those situations. And then like the ocean petrifies me. Like the vastness of it, how you can't see anything in it. Like it all gets dark. Like what's really down there. Like that's actually like my one fear in life is like the ocean. So we picked a winner here.
Can I say that I thought your 2 fears, one was going to be not being able to get tacos after the podcast, or not tacos, nachos after the podcast, which you love.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought your second was going to be all the girls that you catcall rallying together and coming after you. But now that I know your actual number 1 and number 2 fears, I feel like this game must have been stressful for you to even start.
I'll bump these fears down to 2 and 3 because not able to get nachos after the podcast definitely is my greatest fear in life. And I didn't think about it until this moment, and I don't want to live in a world where I can't make that happen. So I might need a moment here to kind of breathe and relax. And
I'm sorry.
I go to this place called Gringo's Nachos. They have the best nachos in Orlando. It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, everyone's going to be able to go there now and find you. Everyone's going to go find you after this.
Hit me up, bros. We'll eat nachos together. It'll be great. You can feed them to me. It'll be really romantic.
Oh, nice.
So let's talk about the things we liked about Narcosis.
Okay, so I'm starting this off by saying that I finished the game. Why are you are loving? Are you just giggling because nachos still exist? What is going on right now?
No, I like some of the people that listen to the pod. I met them at TwitchCon, and I'm just like imagining like Lurky Lurker slowly feeding me nachos. Like, and I'm just like blissful, like, hey, Lurky. It's like,
Yeah.
you got nachos. Here's another.
Yeah.
Like I'm a baby bird.
Yeah, they're kind of sharp though, so you have to make sure that whoever's feeding them to you is very cautious and really cares about you. You know what I mean? You can get jabbed pretty easily there. Anyway, so I feel like one of the best elements of this game, and it was actually hard for me to pick my top 3 here, but I felt like one of the best elements of this game was the narration and the story.
Yeah.
So at first, so I'm so cynical, and when I first heard the voice, I was like, this guy sounds like a dweeb. And you know what though? It was spot on. It worked. The storyline actually is phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I thought that you get enough narration throughout the game, and it's not full of narration. It's just you hit certain parts, and then it opens up another element of the story. And it was right on point. The story was on point. There is a twist at the end, and I will not be revealing what that is, but there is a twist at the end that really like locks the story and the narration in a way that you would not have expected. And I will not lie, my jaw dropped.
No way.
So yes. So I really loved that, the narration and the story. I know you weren't.
I wasn't.
I know you weren't
it.
able to finish.
We'll bring up why I couldn't finish it later, but that actually makes me upset. I might have to go like man up and go finish it.
I don't think you're gonna man up, dude.
No, very unlikely. Maybe if it was like on the streets in San Diego, I'd go holler at it and finish it. Yeah, I think I'm right in line on that point. Like the sound of the game was really well done. The narration was solid. I heard 2 voices from the point I got to, and they were both like they invested in good voice actors. They went out there and paid money to really have it done well. I think the sound overall in the game really stood out to me. The music really was creepy and really put you in the mood and almost suffocated you at times. And like when you first enter the habitat, you're underwater, so there's things floating, and like when they bump into your suit, into your glass, that thump it would make when it bumps into it, like it just it put me right into the game. So sound definitely up there.
Sound was on my list for sure.
Yeah.
And not even just the sounds from the atmosphere, but the music. In horror games, music has to be used correctly, and it's not, I don't know if it's even necessarily difficult, because I feel like a lot of games use music correctly in order to create suspense. There's got to be a pretty there's got to be like a 5-page book out there that's like, this is how you make music work for you in horror.
It's like one guy.
But they did a good job for the scenery, because the scenery in this game is different than a lot of others. You're underwater, so if you're just getting that like thrill-seeking violin screeching suspense, you're not going to receive the same atmosphere. And so I thought that the sound and music were both on really on point, as well as you.
Yeah, and then coming up on like the graphics and the scenery, for being like a $20 indie game, I thought the graphics were pretty good. I think they were like just slightly dated, and that's only because like these big AAA companies are pushing graphics so big right now. But I felt like they did an amazing job for indie studio at really producing some nice content. Everything felt original. You're underwater in a methane extraction plant, I guess it would be, and like I've never seen something like that. I don't think about that stuff, and now I know what it would look like to work underwater at a methane plant.
Well, I think about methane plants all the time.
Right.
And
I just can't stop thinking about the methane.
No, that wasn't also on my list, though, although I do agree with you. The thing that I felt was a small element that is different in this game than a lot of other horror games that are more exploratory is that you are provided a very simple weapon. And in games like this, I have complained multiple times about horror games that the reason why they freak me out so much is because there's no weapon. You're a person, you're an able-bodied person with lots of objects around you, and all you do is freak out and run. And that it drives me nuts, and it gives me anxiety when I play games like this, because I'm like, why is my character not just picking up the board or even trying to protect themselves,
right.
You know?
Takes you out of it.
So you are provided in the very beginning this very simple weapon, and I thought to myself when I received this weapon, oh hell yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to protect myself against whatever is coming. Mm-hmm. That leads into actually one of the negatives for me, which was I was thinking I'm going to be able to protect myself, but unfortunately, the weapon provided does allow you to protect yourself from some of the elements that are attacking you, which actually ends up you'll see it it ends up being sea creatures primarily, along with your own mindset. But you can't fight your mindset. You can fight the sea creatures. But even though you have this weapon, you're in this half-ton titanium suit underwater, and you can't run. So I was excited about the weapon, and I was like, oh my gosh, finally a horror game that's exploratory that I can kind of defend myself, so I feel a little bit more secure, until I started really walking around, and I'm like, I'm never going to be able to walk faster than this 1 mile per hour pace. At certain points in the game, that almost adds to it, because you can't get away from situations quickly, and it adds a little bit of anxiety. However, I did feel like during certain elements of the game, it was a little tedious to have to walk so slowly through everything.
And you're given a thruster system for a boost, but I definitely don't think that the thruster system, it's not enough of it to make you speed up like you're saying. You are just hiking it. It feels like. I would say to start off on kind of my things I disliked, to play off what you're saying, I know you're given a flip knife as your weapon, and I know you're in this big underwater suit, but it still felt almost unresponsive in a way. When you would go to click, it would almost take it a little bit for the knife to hit, and I don't feel like I could really time my defenses against sucker fishes, I guess would be the best way, squids.
They looked like cuttlefish, like gigantic cuttlefish and crabs and stuff, but you can't really defend it against. Well, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't think you.
I don't want to give you guys any hints for if you play this yourself.
Let me ask you this: did the crab did it get the best of you?
It did.
Man, were those things?
Of course it did. I'm bad at games. Of course it got me.
Yeah.
Why? How creepy did it get you?
It got me once. How creepy was that sound of those little crabs or whatever, like Silence of the Lambs?
Oh my god!
Hello, Clarice. That's what they sounded
well, I didn't think about them that way, but they were quite creepy, and now they're even creepier.
Yeah. Something else I didn't like. I felt like some of the scarier parts, kind of I guess the jump scares that they were trying to do, felt a little predictable at times. I knew they were almost coming. There was definitely some that got me, but I felt like there was a rhythm that I kind of discovered that I was like, okay, now here comes the jump scare. There it is. I don't know about you with that.
I feel as though it definitely, for the horror genre, is it the scariest game out there? No. Would I ever? So this game is in VR too.
Yeah.
And would I ever want to play this game in VR? No. I would quite literally shit myself. I would probably run into a wall and knock myself out if I was doing this in VR. I would not be okay. As far as PC gaming, looking at it on one of my monitors, I am a very nervous horror game player. I cried during Outlast because I cried.
No.
I cried.
I'm sorry.
I became so overwhelmed with one part, and I didn't want to continue the game, and I was streaming at the time, and people were like, no, you have to keep playing, and I'd only been streaming for a couple of hours, and I cried because I didn't want to have to face the mean man.
Wow.
And so this game is a little bit more my speed. It gave me enough to be nervous. It gave me enough to jump a couple of times, but it wasn't super overwhelming, and it didn't make me think I was going to die.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are more sensitive to the horror genre, this game is doable for you.
It's an entry level.
And you're also in a really cool, environment. Actually the thing that got a little bit under my skin, which it made sense, but I'm tired of this in general, and this is a personal thing, but I don't like when survival horror makes you require collecting something in order to continue. So in this situation, you're in the suit and you have to keep getting air tanks.
Yes.
And yes, it does make sense. But I feel like it follows kind of that Outlast theme where you're constantly collecting batteries.
Yep.
In Outlast, not having enough batteries was fucking horrifying. In this game, you will die if you don't have the air. So it doesn't add this real excruciating tension for you. There's also
like, did you ever run
No,
out of
I didn't.
Like,
I didn't. So I felt as though it was a little bit just like it was following this format that's been created by certain games such as Outlast, but it didn't necessarily need to be there. Specifically, the flares, they add some more light to the situation, but there are very few situations where you need them. And when I was first starting the game, I thought, oh my gosh, I am going to need these flares. I'm already getting nervous. And then as I continued, I realized I didn't need them quite often. And so therefore, a lot of those insecurities going into this, thinking I was going to be in pitch black, thinking I was going to run out of flares, dissipated. And so I don't know that they need to even be there in that sense, where like when you're playing another game where like you need batteries in order to keep your flashlight, or you're in pitch black, that's scary.
Yeah.
You know, in this game, it didn't necessarily need to be there. It just felt like a game dynamic that they were putting in to just make you feel more like you were playing a game rather than just exploring.
It definitely feels like I have a big problem with games that use like a food mechanic. I just don't think this stuff is necessary. I feel like they went to school for game design and they think like, oh, this is what we learned in game design school. We need to put something like this in. The oxygen system wasn't needed whatsoever. You are never at risk of running out of oxygen, so it just felt like a chore. Like, oh yeah, here's the oxygen tank, let me fill up. Here's the oxygen tank, let me fill up. It was just like repetitive, it was annoying, and then I felt like I couldn't explore the scenery and stuff because if you get to kind of a scary looking part, you see a dead body floating, you start to run out of oxygen faster, so you can't even like really go up to it and like look at it and get into it. I think my biggest dislike is kind of, and you said it got better and like there's a twist. I felt like the story could have been approached better. Halfway through the game-ish, like spoiler alert, there are like you start to find out that you're going through a therapy session almost, and you hear the narration of a therapist start to ask the main character questions.
You don't know what you're talking about, and I'm going to stop you there, sir.
Why?
Because you didn't finish the game, and you're not going through a therapy session.
Okay. Well, for a later date then, but basically what I was going to say is, you don't get to just, like, start a therapy session. Like, are you just going crazy in the suit? Is your narration are you going crazy and narrating to yourself while you're almost dying? Is that what's going on?
No.
Okay. Well, like...
It's ridiculous.
Okay.
I can't tell you because then...
Well, like,
but I do see what you're saying. I see what you're saying in the sense
just,
that,
like, you can't bring it up midstream. Like, oh yeah, now we're in this.
You what?
You can't, like, bring it up midstream while you're in the middle of the story and just be like, oh no, you're actually in the middle of a therapy session looking back.
Yeah. So, I guess the thing is with this one is that I get what you're saying where the narration starts changing, right? Is that what you're trying to say? It started changing and you like, and it just felt almost confusing.
Yeah.
So I do feel like they tie that up.
Okay. Because, like, you know, I just feel like when you're telling a story, you have to earn the right to tell the story that you're telling. And, like, just throwing in a therapy thing without finishing it just felt like, well, you just can't do that. Like, so if there's a good enough payoff, I'll throw that way out the window and say, good job.
I do wanna say that there is definitely a good enough payoff.
Okay.
It starts off with just him talking, and then it starts off with what you're viewing as more of a therapy session.
Okay.
And then it finalizes in a different way, and then the twist happens, and it blows your goddamn mind. But you should explain why you weren't able to finish it, because that's where you only got through a certain amount. And that's why you're viewing the narration in a specific way.
Sure. Don't let me forget, I got one more point about the story, but
okay.
we'll circle back to that in our final thoughts, I guess. But yeah, there are 2 games in my life, and this is the second one, that I can't play or finish because I get motion sickness from it. Like, literally, like, my stomach starts to turn, I get headaches, and, like, I feel nauseous. And there was something about, I don't know if it was the speed that you're looking around at. There is something about this game that I just can't play it, I feel. I had to stop playing it about, I would say there's, 12 chapters? I guess you would call them chapters. I made it 9 into it. I was trying to tough it out. Like, I was a mountain man playing a video game, and I was going to get this done because that's how I was raised. And I just had to stop. And I felt sick all night. I woke up the next day feeling nauseous. This game fucked me up. And God bless anyone that played this shit in VR, because that would
I can't
screw
even
you
imagine.
up. So yeah, that's why I couldn't play the game. I stopped. I feel like I was right there about to get the payoff, and I had to stop.
Yeah, you were close. Yeah.
Do you want me to?
What's your last point?
So with the story, there's a big theme in this game about isolation and being cut off from and loss, because everyone that was on this thing, what would you call it? The methane plant. All the workers there. There's like 20 people who work there. Like, they're all pretty much dead. And you go through it and you find out they're dead. And I wasn't that affected by it. And I think the way that you start off right at the incident, while that's kind of a good storytelling thing if you're writing a story, when you're playing a game, I don't think that is the best way to start a story. Had I been in the habitation, like the home base for this, and like interacted with these people, and then the accident happens, like, you know, slightly after that, I would feel more affected by losing these people. My isolation, I never felt lost. I see these people's dead bodies flying, and I don't feel anything for them. So I think as storytelling wise, you could do a bit more as a game developer to attach the player to the character's loss, if that's the route you're taking.
I agree with you. I think if you'd finished, though, it would have changed a lot of what you're saying right now.
God damn it.
I know. I'm so sorry to do this to you, but the things that adjust in the game are even adjust what you're saying right now. However, I actually agree with you in the sense that when you first start this game, this collision happens, this earthquake happens under the sea, and you are kind of wandering through, which brings me to my last issue with it. You're wandering through this atmosphere where you had been working alongside specific people, but you don't feel connected to them in the same sense, like exactly what you're saying, outside of the fact that you get their IDs, you get some information on their death and in some type of journal,
some knickknacks and stuff.
So here's the thing, though, and this is where I almost wonder if like the issue lies, is that these are huge plants. There are multiple desks, there are multiple computers, and it almost makes it seem like it was this massive facility. And when you're running across these people that you apparently knew of in some way, you're getting some information on them, but there's only like 10 of them in this massive plant that's just been demolished, and like everyone's dead, And why are there only 10 people? You know what I mean? So, like, I almost think that you didn't really know the people, but they had to throw some deaths in there.
Yeah.
It was just weird. And I guess that was my complaint, was that there should have been, I mean, this is a weird complaint, but there should have been dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted more dead bodies.
You just like
and
death.
then if you had
Hail
run
Satan.
into, and then if you had run into, Hail Satan, if you had run into people then that you knew,
yes,
and then gotten information about their death, that would have felt more crucial.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you would be going against this sea of dead bodies and running into someone that you recognized, and then collecting information about their death. I think that would have maybe changed it.
Yeah, and I think this is I was reading that like this is what started off as like a school student project. So this is like this company's first game, and it almost feels like storytelling wise, just like coming out of the blocks, you don't really know the race yet. Like you understand kind of the motions, but you don't know how to like really finish strong. And so for a solid game in all aspects, the story is just like undercutting all the good things they did, because the story in a survival horror is like what pulls you and connects you to the world and attaches like I'm freaked out because I'm losing all the people I care about. What are your final thoughts on Narcosis? Is this a recommendation that you would give it to people, or?
I'm a total thumbs up on this. I was hesitant about, I would say I was iffy on it until completion. And then a lot came together for me. I did enjoy, and one thing we didn't get to talk about a lot, but it's also psychological. A lot of the horror dynamics in this game come from the isolation factor, come from the psychological factor. You're also combative with sea creatures, but there is a lot of fear in the fact that this catastrophe has occurred, and therefore you are left alone. And there's a lot of fear in that, and having to figure out if you're ever going to be able to get out of the sea and be brought back up, or if you're going to die down there. And it brings this really interesting dynamic. Also, I love the element of, and I feel like under the sea games should be a bigger genre.
Yes.
We look a lot at aliens, we look a lot at space, but we don't really consider how little we know about the depths of the deep depths of the ocean. And I think it is truly horrifying how little we know about what is actually going on there on our own Earth.
Yes.
So I just feel like this genre, like under the sea horror, there's still room for it after this game. But I think that this was a good step. Yep. So thumbs up for me.
Yep. I'll agree with you on that. First off, you're right about the aliens thing. Like, I'm way less scared of aliens than I am like the sea. We should just start like dropping nukes into the ocean and just like fuck this. There's nothing good down there. I've seen Pacific Rim. It's all bad business. This is a recommendation for me. You know, it's a $20 game, which is on the more expensive side for an indie game, and definitely that we've played. And you know, besides me getting sick, which is my own kind of weakness, and you know, I'll think about that while I'm drinking tonight and crying myself to sleep.
And eating your nachos.
Yeah, eating my nachos. Just wishing I was more manly than my grandpa, but you know, I would definitely recommend this game. It's a great, you know, you're gonna get probably like 3 hours out of it if you don't go back and replay it. Like the VR is a whole nother area and elevation to it that might be amazing. I definitely would recommend Narcosis game to anybody.